greatest news story in 1944. D-Day, H-hour. That fateful moment for which the whole world held its breath. But in the night hours of D-Day -1, long before these first assault boats nosed onto the beach, American fighting men, troop carriers, paratroops, airborne infantry, and glidermen were already there. This picture is a small tribute to those men, living and dead, who went in before H-hour on D-Day, 5 hours ahead of the main force, to start the destruction of Fortress Europe.
We have to remember he was a young first lieutenant when he came over here leading these guys, and it was really his first experience with combat.
He was a person that just made you feel secure being around him, just the way he walked, his bearing, the way he talked. That's the way he was.
He was an average guy, actually, but he rose to the occasion. He met it, and he helped us meet it too.
The man really is, I think, represents the quintessential leader.
He was a great leader, and everything he did was right. He always, all his decisions were right.
He had an innate sense of doing the right thing.
You know, these guys were willing to follow him in the words of one veteran through the gates of hell.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the dedication of the Richard Winters Leadership Monument. My name is Tim Gray. I'm chairman of the World War II Foundation. First, let me say we welcome all those who have come across the pond, as they like to say, from America on this very important day. We are also very happy to be joined by so many of our friends from France, both young and old, and as well as those from across Europe who have made the trek today. We are also fortunate to be hosting so many important dignitaries on the 68th anniversary of D-Day, both from the United States and from the French Republic. Today we have mayors, governors, and major generals gathered. Our biggest welcome today, however, is reserved for the veterans of D-Day and World War II. It goes without saying that you in the front row are the reason we are able to gather in public places such as this and enjoy the freedom this monument represents.
So SERKET became involved with the Richard Winters Leadership Memorial via the World War II Foundation. We were approached by the World War II Foundation. They were looking for people to come on board, help essentially bring this memorial to life. And we were thrilled to do it, absolutely thrilled.
And he didn't look at this as a personal aggrandizement. He looked at it as representative of all the folks that were in this combat situation and the responsibilities that they bore.
This project has been 2.5 years in the making and has the blessing of the late Richard D. Winters. It has his approval because this statue we are about to unveil, while utilizing his likeness and a quote from him, represents all those who led the way on D-Day. It does not represent just a man, but many men. It does not represent just one individual company, but rather many companies, regiments, and battalions. The Richard Winters Leadership Monument does not recognize just one specific division as well, but rather all the American Army divisions who fought on the beaches and in the hedgerows and villages of Normandy on June 6th of 1944.
68 years ago today here in Normandy, the Allied Expeditionary Forces landed on a beach not far from here and were airdropped all around this area. And what those forces needed that day were a courageous audacity, and that is exactly what Richard Winters instilled in them. And frankly, anything less would have been lethally insufficient.
The man depicted on this monument is today one of the best-known leaders of World War II, thanks in part to the power of words and of film. He didn't lobby for the role, it was just handed to him. Richard Winters handled his newfound recognition later in his life the way he led his men in combat in Normandy and other areas of Europe, with dignity, compassion, and strength of body, mind, and character. His story does not need to be repeated today. We all know it. We know why this place is special and why this monument is here, and this particular soldier sits atop it.
You have to have the confidence in the person that's leading. You have to trust the person that's leading. You have to feel that that person's interested in your own welfare. And these were all exemplified by Dick Winters, I think. And he had our respect.
It wasn't done via bullying or badgering or intimidation. I mean, this man commanded respect.
Yeah, Major Winters led by example more than anybody I ever knew, because he thought out things before, in a fraction of a second, he would think of something before he did it.
What I think impressed the soldiers in his command as to why they had respect for him was that his decision-making, his respect for his people, and he could grasp a real situation and decide the proper thing to do. And they knew he could do that in combat. They were not afraid to go into combat with him.
So it's absolutely amazing, you know, what he managed to do and how he happened to manage to pull these guys together and not only keep them on task, but you know, get the job done and keep his men safe and continue to garnish the respect of his men.
Dick Winters agreed to lend us his likeness in a pose that represents leadership in combat, while also allowing us to use one of his most important quotes regarding men who fight. But make no mistake about it, this is not a monument to one man or his rank at the beginning or end of the war. This, in the end, is a monument to many men and the leadership they displayed on D-Day. That is the way he wanted it, and we have honored his wishes today.
Leadership. Leadership is what Dick Winters wanted us to remember of him. What he wanted marked upon this statue with more prominence than his name, and what he wanted us to pay homage to in honoring the moments and makers of a valiant history.
You know, I think this memorial is essential to tell the story of Richard Winters and who he's about, not only as a man, but as a leader.
All of us have the ability to develop our leadership skills. Some do it better than others. Dick excelled at it.
I think my fondest memory of Dick Winters is the kind of man he was. He was a kind of leader. He was a decent person, and he was focused on what his mission was.
Which was fantastic, the way he moved and did things. He was he was a terrific shot. He never wasted ammunition. He never used a gun unless he had to, because he was a leader.
He was a bright leader and somewhat of a fearless leader too, but sensible.
You know, I think there's one event in particular during Operation Market Garden in Holland. Richard Winters climbed the staircase to the top of a church steeple in Uden on Hell's Highway, September the 22nd, 1944. And they were in a small village there in Uden. He quickly realized that German forces were mobilizing on all sides of their position, and unflappable leader that Richard Winters is, he descended the stairs, gathered his men, and said, "Gentlemen, this situation is normal. We're completely surrounded."
Yeah, that's what we expected when we went into combat, that we would be surrounded, and then hope for a breakthrough somewhere to relieve us. Exactly what Winters was very right when he said nothing unusual, we're surrounded. I think that was apropos.
But Dick Winters was a great leader. I don't think he had an enemy. I think even the Germans must have liked him. But he was a great leader, and everything he did was right. He always, all his decisions were right.
Major Winters always did things right. I don't think he ever made a mistake. the guys really reverenced him because, not worshiped, reverenced him, because he had an innate sense of doing the right thing.
Another one said to me, I never saw him make a technical error in the field.
You know, these guys were willing to follow him, in the words of one veteran, through the gates of hell. And I think that is, you know, that's something that can't be taught. I think that's a characteristic that you either have or you don't have.
Richard Winters would not want us to make a big deal out of this. We don't have bands playing today. There are no balloons, no parades, or fireworks. That is not who he was before or after he became one of the most recognizable leaders of World War II.
I think he would be almost overwhelmed and humbled and dismayed at the crowd, and because he was not that kind of a guy. He was a very humble, simple fellow.
A book and a television series made him a public hero, but like all the men of World War II, he will tell you the real heroes are the men who never came home. So keeping with the late Major's wishes, we are not making this all about him. It's really all about the men in the front row and the men who never came home. The statue may be symbolic of one man in particular who was an exceptionally good leader on D-Day and one of America's most respected soldiers in the war, but there were many leaders on June 6, 1944.
We are very fortunate that Richard Winters' exploits and heroism has been well captured, documented, written about, movies made about it, obviously. And he serves as really a quintessential example of that generation and what they did and what they stood for and the incredible sacrifice they made.
It is now time to unveil the Leadership Monument. If Governor Ridge, Major General McConville, Mayor Millay, and Charles could please head over down the stairs and around to the parachute. They will have the honor of taking the parachute off of the statue today. Today's ceremony would not have happened without the corporate support of our sponsor, SERKET USA. They did not hesitate when presented with the opportunity to be involved with the Leadership Dedication Program. So Governor Ridge and General McConville, and if all of you would grab a portion of that parachute. Ladies and gentlemen, the Richard D. Winters Leadership Monument, recognizing all those who led the way on D-Day. There we go. Notice all the discs around the Major at the bottom represent all the divisions and corps who took part on D-Day. In the back of the statue it says Leadership, the quote from Richard D. Winters, and on the other side the date of June 6, 1944.
When I look at that statue, that monument to Dick Winters, I see it portraying the American soldier, the determination when he's in a situation that requires him to stand taller than he really is, or than he thinks he is, and to overcome. And as Dick Winters stated, to hang himself.
This memorial is interesting because Richard Winters, being, you know, the incredible, humble man that he was, didn't want a memorial to himself. He wanted a memorial that was really representative of all junior officers that were involved in Operation Overlord, and there were some great ones, but at the end of the day, it's tough to make a statue of them all. So if you had to pick one guy, no question in my mind that Richard was the guy to pick. SERKET is incredibly proud to be a part of the Richard Winters Leadership Memorial. I think it's so important to not only remember the lessons of heroism, honor, and sacrifice learned from World War II, but to pass those lessons on to future generations.